Joining me on ET now, a very, very special guest, John Veihmeyer, the global CEO of KPMG, joins us right here. Thanks very much, John, for being with us. Pleasure again to connect with you in Davos.
Great to be back with you.
Great. We're speaking at a time when the global economy is undergoing a lot of turmoil. There is not one, not two, but a lot of pressure points around the world. So whether it's geopolitical or global terror or the market financial meltdown, of course, China being one part of the pain, there is a lot of pain that the world is facing right now. If I were to ask you, what is it, or what are the pockets of concern, according to someone like you, that the world is going through?
Well, I think you just hit most of the ones. I actually think geopolitical risks right now are much more significant than market risks in terms of impact on business. So I start there. China slowing, which I don't overreact to, but it's clearly a factor that's going to impact global growth for some period now. Those are probably the two most important ones that I would focus on.
IMF for once has slashed the global growth forecast once again. It's down to 3.4 than the previous 3.6% for this year. It's also slashed for next year. They believe China is a point of concern. But according to you, do you believe we are going, or the world is going to grow at 3.4%, or actual levels of growth are going to be lower? And what are the points for concern there?
I will say from where I sit, and I spend a lot of my time out in the marketplace meeting with CEOs of some of the major companies in the world. Oil prices, which is another thing that is talked about a lot, actually is a double-edged coin. And there are many consumer-based economies in the world where the price of oil is actually, I think, going to continue to accelerate growth.
John, you've put it rightly that US and India seem to be the shining spot. But let's talk about the gloom before we talk about the good that the world is witnessing. And the gloom also is coming from China. Many people are beginning to draw the parallel with what's happening in China, with what happened with the global economy in 2008, where China is exporting turbulence to the world. Are you somebody who is losing sleep over China just yet? A lot of
Yeah, I would say I'm taking a much more balanced view toward China. I think the slowdown that we're seeing in China to many, extents is very predictable as they transform the economy there. We've known that's coming. I just wouldn't overreact to it right now. I think the key in China, and I've said this before, is how well leadership in China does managing the transition of their economy. And as long as people believe and have confidence in the fact that they'll be able to manage through this transition, I wouldn't overreact to concerns about China.
The two views out there. One view that believes China is in transition. The other believes China is in a mess. We'll leave the two views there. But let me also take the opportunity to ask you a question that some of the experts here in Davos are talking about, and that's the deflationary concerns that the world is seeing. Consumption is down in every economy in the world, including in India, where demand was a big talking point at one point in time. How worried are you about the deflationary concerns, especially given the commodity crash that the world has witnessed?
Well, I think commodities are driving a big part of that deflationary
yes.
pressure that you're referring to. So clearly energy-dependent economies are feeling the effects in a major way. But again, these energy has a double-edged kind of impact. And if you're an energy producer, you see that from one perspective. If you're a consumer-based economy, you see energy prices today from a very different perspective. So I think deflation is a concern. I think the central banks are very much focused on that as they establish and continue to drive monetary policy. But in my view, it's being largely driven by commodities.
I also want to now focus to you about investments. You have a whole host of corporate clients. Given what the world is witnessing right now, you rightly pointed out the geopolitical risks, the global terror, and of course the financial markets in some sort of a turmoil. Are they holding back on investments, especially in countries like the emerging markets that we refer to?
Yeah, I think from an emerging market standpoint, there's still a very long-term perspective that many of these multinationals are taking. And if you look at a region like Africa, even though there may be some short-term turbulence and short-term economic stress for sure, I think companies that are investing there because of the potential they see in Africa 10 years from now, 20 years from now. What you are seeing is the pace of investment being affected. And it's not a on-off switch of am I investing or not, but I think they're trying to make sure that it's a measured approach to the way they invest in some of these emerging markets in light of the current economic situation.
Fair point indeed. Let me turn focus to India because you referred to India as a shining spot in what is otherwise a global gloom. How optimistic are you in India right now? I mean, I remember the last time we spoke, there was a lot of euphoria. India was the buzzword. It was almost coming back into center stage here at Davos. But, things have changed. The reform pace has slowed down. There's been a bitter political standoff. Decisions that many people thought Mr. Modi will be able to take, he hasn't been able to take. Keeping all of that in perspective, are you as bullish on India as you were a year back?
I am definitely bullish on India, but I take a longer-term view when I make that comment. So I think India continues to, if you look at all of the things that are going to drive over a 5, 10, 15, 20-year period, an economy that is going to be critical to the world and a really great source of investment opportunities, I think India hits those criteria. Frankly, we knew that it was going to be hard work in India achieving many of the reforms that leadership there is trying to drive. And while it's easy to say we haven't gotten this done or that done, I think if you look at the progress that has been made in India over the last 2 years, I think it still surprises a lot of people in terms of what has been achieved. I think there's tremendous confidence in the finance minister and his sense of what needs to be done in India. So yes, I'm still very bullish on India.
Fair point indeed. But Mr. Modi's big budget is right around the corner. Mr. Jaitley is going to be presenting it, the Indian finance minister. As the global, as the global chief executive of KPMG, you are obviously in touch with a whole host of global investors. What is it that they are looking for in the budget right around the corner, and also from a decision-making point of view? What is it that they are expecting India to do?
I think the expectation is unchanged from last year, frankly, which is continue with the reforms, continue building the infrastructure, investing in infrastructure. All of the reforms that are going to be critical from a governance standpoint and ease of doing business. I would put that very high on the list. If you're an outside investor of a multinational and you're looking at India, you're concerned about how easy it is to do business or not, and those things have to be high on the agenda. And I think what the world wants to see is a continued commitment to driving those reforms, even though it's painful in the short term.
Oh, absolutely. And reforms are a reflection of the political will, and we will perhaps see more reforms going forward. But just to talk to you about the pain point in reforms, and that is taxes. The Vodafone tax issue was one such matter which brought us a lot of global disrepute. That has still not been sorted out. Of course, the finance minister has said there will be no retrospective taxation. But given the fact that the Vodafone tax case still hangs in balance and there is an ongoing litigation on that, they're trying to work it out through arbitration. Are global investors a worried lot as far as India's tax policies are concerned? Are still a worried lot, actually? Let me reframe that question.
It is certainly a risk area as you're investing in India. Having said that, Mr. Jaitley has been very clear, I think, every time he's spoken on that topic as to his commitment and the government's commitment to look prospectively and not retroactively. I take him at his word, and I think people are looking for consistent actions that prove the policy point, and as long as we continue to see actions that are consistent with those statements from Mr. Jaitley and others, I think that won't be as prominent an issue as, frankly, it was a year and a half ago or a year ago.
Thank you very much, Mr. Veihmeyer, for speaking to us once again in ET Now.
Great being with you. Thank you.
John Veihmeyer of KPMG, right here on Davos Direct on ET Now. Thank you very much indeed.
Okay, good luck this week.
Thanks a lot.
All right.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow, and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNowLive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/ETNow.